Recording.
Oh, we're recording. All right. Hi, everyone. Talofa lava. Welcome, welcome. Good to see everyone. While we're waiting for the rest to join us, I'd like to say hi and talofa to everyone on behalf of our Pacific Learning Partnership for Environmental and Social Sustainability Partners, the World Bank, ADB, SPREP, and USB. A big talofa and welcome to you all, wherever you're joining in from the Pacific region. It's so good to see you online. Hi, Lavinia. And it's another week of our trainings. This is our sixth session for this final round of trainings, and I am Ofera Fasamorian. I am your facilitator for this final round of trainings, and I must say that this time has flown by so fast. We're almost at the end of our training program, and time has really gone by fast. So congratulations to all of our participants who have joined us from the beginning, and I encourage you to stay until the end of this final round. And so again, welcome, welcome, welcome. But before we start our session, I'd like to ask our participants and our team to join us in prayer as we give honor to where honor is due. And so please join me in prayer. Thank you. Father, we thank you so much for this great opportunity that you have given us to for this training. We thank you for our trainers and our sponsors and all the participants who are joining us today. We ask that you help us and open our minds to receive this training today. And we know that it will be beneficial to not only to us, but also to our governments, our country, wherever we are serving. We know that it will help. It will be a blessing. And so we thank you again for all that you have blessed us with. We give you all the glory, all the honor. In Jesus' mighty name we pray. Amen. All right. Thank you very much for again for joining us. This is a brief introduction to our training module for today. Let's go back to the narrative behind this module, module 22, titled Management Information Systems to Support EIA and Safeguard Management in the Pacific. SPREP knowledge portals. So the reasoning behind this module, just reading from our training plan, Pacific Island countries are often constrained by the availability and accessibility of information and data relevant for EIA and safeguards usage. This limits the capacity of national EIA regulators and project developers to properly design and manage projects, establishing national baseline data, reviewing ESIA reports, monitoring ENS performance throughout a project life cycle. The PLP-ESS training needs assessment and the recent evaluation findings of the first round of regional trainings show preference for training on how to establish effective management information systems to assist with regulatory functions of national EIA agencies. To address this issue, training will be offered to raise awareness of existing knowledge portals that contain relevant information or data for EIA and safeguard management. This includes knowledge portals from SPREP and other PLP-ESS partners. So this module will be delivered in two parts. Modules 22 and 24 will focus on knowledge portals operated by SPREP. And our learning objective for this session will introduce participants to the SPREP knowledge portal, namely the Inform portal. And our trainers for today is Mr. Paul Anderson, tuning in from the United States of America. Mr. Anderson is the Inform project manager, and he will be explaining more about this project during his presentation. And also tuning in from here in Samoa is Ms. Langi Ropena. She will also be presenting today, and she is the Inform Project Environmental Data Officer. And so again, we thank you. A big thank you to our trainers who are tuning in today virtually. We greatly appreciate your time for today. And with that, before I hand it over to Paul and Langi, just some reminders for our participants. Today, just be mindful of our internet connection. My internet connection keeps going on and off, but thankfully Zoom logs me back in really quickly. So please be mindful of that. Also, our PNEA portal, all our training materials and our video for this training session will be uploaded to the PNEA portal. If you haven't registered, please register, and you can access this information freely on that portal. Also, please remember our online evaluation survey form. You need to fill that in immediately after this session so that you don't forget. And that will help towards getting your certificate. Also be mindful that you need to stay on this session until the end. Your time will be recorded so that it will also go towards determining your certificate if you get your certificate. So please do stay until the end of the session. And so with that, I will now hand it over to Paul and Langi, all the best team, and enjoy.
Dr. Lava, thank you so much for the introduction. Good afternoon, good morning, everyone. My name is Paul. I've been working at SPREP since 2008, like 15 years or so. And today we're going to present to you essentially a tool you can use. The big takeaway message from this presentation and our discussion today is that there's data online, you should use it, and you can contribute to it. So if you remember just two things, there's information, we want you to use it, it's free and open, it's easy. I'm going to talk about databases a little bit. Don't worry about that if it seems complicated. Information's useful, it's free, it's open. And if you're producing information in the course of your work, which I believe you will be, it should go on to these open national data portals for your use in the future and your national colleagues. Okay, let me open up my PowerPoint here. That. Now it's sharing, share screen. Screen 2. Everyone's seeing a kind of rainbow colored Pacific Environment Data Portal. Yep,
Yes,
okay.
Paul.
Fantastic. So you heard in the introduction that I'm the Inform project manager. And you see the logo in the lower left-hand corner for Inform, and Jeff and UNEP and SPREP. Ignore the project. One of the outputs of a project is a continuing service that SPREP provides to member countries with member countries called the Pacific Environment Data Portal Network. So there's a bunch of portals, they're networked together. That is an output of a project that continues past the project. The subtext of all this is that we'd like the information to be as useful as possible to decision makers in a variety of ways. And one of those ways is supporting better and informed EIAs and ensuring that EIAs have a pathway to capture the good data that occur during them in the process of conducting them for the building of our collective knowledge. Let's see if I can advance the slide. I cannot. I have to click a button. There we go. Okay. So just a step back in time, maybe 5-6 years ago now, we helped a country in the Pacific conduct a state of environment report looking at a variety of environmental indicators, getting data from 12 different sectors that was not available anywhere besides on someone's computer. Pulled it together, wrote this big report, and produced a database on a little flash drive and on my computer. We then passed that information back to the ministry along with the report. And about a year later, I got an email saying, "Hey, Paul, you know that data we collected? Can't find it, but we have it again." I said, "Yeah, of course. I mean, I work for you. I want you to have it. It's your data. I happen to have a copy." And from that experience and general need across the region for better data management, SPREP, with all 14 member countries, developed a project to do a bunch of things, but one of them was build a place that's easy to use to store data. In this case, by data, we mean everything. So ideally, spreadsheets with columns and rows with numbers in them that you can analyze, acknowledging that much of the data in the Pacific, particularly in the environment sector, is in PDF format, unfortunately, but that's where it is. That's still data. GIS information, shape files, GeoJSON files, JPEGs of maps, all that is also data. All that can be on the portal. So through this SOE process, we realized that analyzing information is one thing, having access to it and maintaining it and using it over time is another thing that we wanted to help address. And I'm happy to say that the Pacific region has made great strides in this area. We're nowhere near done, but we've greatly improved the situation. And we have not done enough to reach out to EIA practitioners that require information for your work. And we've not done enough to reach out to EIA practitioners and say, hey, if you're getting both a final report and good information, you should put it in the cool database so that you can use it in the future and your colleagues can see it. Okay, that was the why. Now the what. Most Pacific Island countries and some territories now have national environmental databases that are open, and there's a typo there, and online to make use of data in any format. It's important to note that there's one country, Fiji, who does have an environmental database, data portal, that is hidden behind a password protected screen due to internal concerns about data sensitivity. Everything Fiji and all the other countries have that are publicly available, that is available for public consumption, is also on the regional node. And I'll show you where that is in a minute. All right, so our overarching objectives for this particular component of our project and this long-term service that SPREP is providing with full participation of the countries include making information available. It's 2022. If you go on your computer or your phone and you want to find out a fact or a figure or find a report, it should be there. Oftentimes, the gray literature and information that governments publish in the Pacific has not been on my phone when I want it to be, because it's on someone's computer and not someplace I can search. So now the information that SPREP has and SPC has, because we have a partnership with SPC to ensure that relevant information is shared across our platforms, is available to you anywhere, anytime. If you're at a COP in Germany, or if you're on a fishing boat and you have cell connection, you can access all the resources at will. Another challenge is finding information. So a good search engine, allowing folks to search out the resource they want to find. We have, I think in this particular database, 11,000 data sets currently, maybe more. We'll check in a minute. We can take a look at the current counter, and timely information that you can access at any time. Okay, I've covered this slide. Okay, this network of data portals I've been talking about came along with several other outputs, including a reporting tool called State of Environment Report. That's now available and published for, I think, 9 of the 14 countries, and the other 5 are in progress. So in short order, every country should have a fairly current SOE, which may provide valuable information for the scene setting for SOEs and other analysis, not SOEs, EIAs and other analysis, right? So basic facts and figures for each of the 14 countries in the Pacific should be available in the SOE. We can also show you where to find those, sitting in a number of places online now, including the national data portals. One of the processes that our team has been working on has been, okay, hold on. Greg, can I pass to you?
So, Paul, just a quick clarification for those of you who may not be familiar with what an SOE is. It's a state of environment report that countries do. They're a national report. So when he's saying SOE, he's referring to that and not a state of emergency. Yep.
Yes. Thank you, Greg, for clarifying. I keep forgetting that the SOE with the emergency is a little bit more common right now.
Yeah.
You know, we're talking about a beautiful, very interesting illustrated booklet with data in it about the country, not a state of emergency, which is less beautiful but equally important. These state of environment reports should be produced on the order of once every 5 years at the national level. They typically use standardized indicators so we can track change over time. Things like how much of the coral is alive, live coral cover. In 1995, in 2000, and 2010, ideally we don't see a decrease. There's typically about 31 indicators in each of the SOEs. We'll take a look at those in a little bit. Thank you, Greg. Please jump in if I use acronyms that may not be familiar. I sometimes forget and apologize for that. One of the challenges with SOEs, and I assume EIAs, is analyzing data. We've been working hard to build capacity to take rows and columns of information, clean it, assess it, and look at trends over time, and make that into a narrative that a decision maker might use to make a decision. And the most important process is focus your attention down to the lower right-hand corner of the screen, data sharing. Much of us, I assume people in this room, have experienced silos where information is available to those in the group, in the ministry, in the department, and not to those outside of it, because there's maybe no method or modality to exchange it. And sometimes there's territoriality around data. This does not serve any of us well. Data is expensive to gather. I worked on a rapid biodiversity assessment. A couple of weeks of work cost $250,000. That information becomes more valuable and cheaper per unit if everyone uses it. Same goes for water quality. Basically everything, unless it's secret. Ideally we'll be sharing. And we're trying hard to provide a platform and a culture and the necessary enabling environment to share more information. I think everyone here can agree that access to more information will make our jobs easier. That's what we're striving to do. This is one of the areas where we've made great strides in the right direction, but we could do a lot more. The work is almost endless, but we have some significant large steps that can still be taken. Okay, moving on. All right. This is our little, very simple cartoonized flow chart of, I'll point out where the challenge begins. Everybody here is familiar with field data collection and the fact that when you come back in the office, whether you have the data on a piece of paper or your phone, you need to validate it, make sure it's correct, a little bit of data processing and cleaning. And then typically you show it to your supervisor or the director of the department and say, this is the final data, we're going to use it now. And that person authorizes use. Often the breakdown of communication is this gray line going from bubble 4 to bubble 5. It usually stops there and is used for the one report on forest cover, and that's it. And what we've had some success with in this project, and hopefully to benefit the people in the room today, is connecting it to a data portal, a national data portal where others can access that good, expensive information and use it again. And our team has been trying to help encourage it to get pushed further into indicator development and creating a workflow to decision makers to use that information to allocate budget, come up with new interventions, improve generally environmental quality. Okay, a map of the Pacific. It's got all the countries and territories on it. A couple of the territories don't have national data portals. Our project that created them is funded by Jeff. Jeff only funds work in countries. So in some cases, we've been able to stand up a territorial data portal. In most cases, there's very little support for that. So we've got all 14 countries with the caveat that Fiji's exists but is hidden behind a firewall. And the public information for Fiji is on the national portal. There's a map like this on the regional environment data portal website, and you can click on the EEZ and it'll take you to the national portal. That's one way to access them. All right. So what is a data portal? It's a repository, kind of like a library, where information's stored and backed up. I can't tell you the number of times that physical backups in Pacific Island countries that I'm aware of have failed. So like a server getting wet or crashing, and the backup that's on it is no longer. So the backups of these repositories is on the web, in Amazon web servers sitting in Sydney and Tokyo, redundantly hosted, so the chances of loss of information is very low. It's never zero, but it's the lowest we can get it on our budget. We have the option of having in-country servers, and due to a variety of issues, including the maintenance costs over time, we went with Amazon web servers because it's a more sustainable solution and one that's a little more secure. Not important to those in the room, just to say we've made it as secure and backed up as possible. There are different levels of sharing information. The national data portals do allow for the content creators, those who are uploading data, to set their data to private if they only want those who are logged in their ministry to see it, or to share it if they want anyone with a login in government to see the data, or to public, which means anyone in the world can see the information. And I think 97% of the data is public. So a couple of people are using it to store some private information, which is fine. You as the public can see that it exists. You can see the metadata, the title and the description of what the data is, and then you can see who owns it, but you can't see the actual file itself. The nice thing about sharing metadata for a private data set is if you need it, you're a researcher and you really want to see the turtle nesting sites for a country, you can email the owner and say, hey, I'm doing research on this. I've got some funding. Can you share the information? And then that person can make an individual choice to share it. So the point there to take away is that there's different levels of access. The vast majority of the data is public, and the content creator sets that level. So SPREP isn't unilaterally saying this data is public. It's the person who uploads it. They decide if they can share, if they can't. Most of it's public. Platform is based on DCAN. The new version is called ECAN. This is going down the alphabet. It's an open source piece of software created originally in the US to manage US government data. There's a link to it. If you want to check out the GitHub and install it yourself, it's completely free and open. That's just the structure in which the data is stored. Now my advanced button works somehow. Okay. There's one regional portal. It's like a node. I got a graphic in a minute at the center. All 14 country portals read from it and to it. That's important for sharing with other international partners. Each country has their own unique URL. We'll take a look at one of those in a few minutes. Yeah, sliding on from this one. Oh, there's the good graphic. It looks like a fan. Pretty cool. So in the center of the fan is the Pacific Environment Portal. That's the node that collects information and pushes information out to each of the 14 countries and several of the territories. So Our colleagues at SPC have been collecting information for Pacific Island countries for close to 70 years. Most of the data is more like 30 to 40 years old, but there's a lot of information. They're also struggling in finding solutions for the same problem that SPREP and the countries are having, that is making information available. We currently are harvesting information using an API into the regional data portal, that central node, and if it has a country name in it, like Tonga or Samoa or RMI, it gets harvested by the country data portal. So the SPC data winds its way through and ends up at the national portal. So everything that's nationally relevant should be sitting in FSM or Palau or Niue. Also sitting on the national data portal or the regional data portal. We're currently working with UNESCO, who's standing up the Ocean Information Hub. That's a global resource, and discussing doing that same harvest through the regional node to the national nodes for oceans data. And we'll continue building those partnerships over time so that information that you need in Niue, you don't have to go to 14 different websites hoping to find it. It should be sitting on the national one. That's a work in progress. We have one really good partner right now that's harvesting and we're harvesting from, and we have a couple more in the pipeline. Right. This is the first. Oh yeah, yes, Greg, please.
So the really cool graphic, can you explain to the viewers, you say there's 14, can you explain why it's showing 17 portals?
You're not supposed to count. And yes,
I can't help it. It's just the way my brain works. I just looked at it when that's not
there's
14.
more than 14. There is more.
Yes, there's more than 14. So there are actually more portals available. As Paul mentioned, there are some territories that do have portals.
I think there is one for American Samoa. That's, oh, is my cursor visible? American Samoa here.
Yep, we can see it.
Yep. And then New Caledonia.
One for Tokelau. Yep.
Tokelau, yeah. There it is.
All the way down there. Yeah, there you go.
And there's another one. My eyes are not good enough. The existing territory portals were easy and inexpensive to spin up, to establish. They have limited information because our team can't interact directly with them to build capacity and awareness that they exist. So this platform's there. If anyone here is from Tokelau or New Caledonia or American Samoa, we'd love for you to use it. We'd be happy to share some basic capacity building material with you on how to upload information to them. No issue. Thank you, Greg. What else? Oh, this is the first slide where there is the URL, I think. Is it? Yep. No, this is just information about, this is our web page at SPREP that talks about the project, not the portal itself. Oh, that's here, data.sprep.org. It could be tonga-data.sprep.org or pacific-data.sprep.org for the regional one, or Niue, FSM, RMI, and PNG are acronyms. So the name of the country for those three are the three-letter acronym. The other ones are spelled out, just to keep it interesting. Okay, there's a larger URL. If you want to check it out while we're talking, that's totally fine. We'll answer questions about it in a bit. Pacific-data.sprep.org will take you to the regional node. If you scroll down on the page, there's a map. You can click on any of the countries and go to them from there. You'll notice here, and we'll talk about it as we do the live tour, that there's a couple of tabs at the top that'll take you to the data sets, to an about page, which is, mildly interesting, has some important information about who has authority to grant new accounts. There's an explore spatial data, which I really like a lot because I like maps. This takes you to an open map viewer, which information from this portal and others are harvested from, and you can see the biodiversity assessment sites, the fisheries sampling sites, the water quality testing sites that we have on the map, which is kind of cool. And if they're on the portal, you can download the actual shape file or GeoJSON for your own map making if you use GIS. If you don't, you can get a nice map off there, print it out and stick it in your report. There's two features here to publish stories and dashboards. There's ways to display important information on the front of the portal. That's used by the managers of the portals to try to promote information that they find valuable. And docs. Docs is help information. You can find out all the documentation of how this was made, why it was made, and what's in it under documents. You'll see over here, there's a little login button that's green. Unless you're authorized by the national administrator, you can't log in. But that doesn't decrease the functionality for most people at all. You can still access the information. If you log in, you can upload information, which is what we really want, more people to contribute to it. But we need to have our focal point in country say, yes, we trust Greg, we'd like him to upload information before we give him access, for example. And we do trust Greg, he's got access. But point being, you as an EIA practitioner operating outside government may not have access to it, but your colleagues in government should. And if you're within government and you'd like access, we'd be happy to help you find the right person to ask and facilitate that process. Okay. Oh, and the bit on marine pollution toward the bottom here is an example of a dashboard. And all those dots on that map are all marine pollution incidences over the last 15 years from purse seine vessels on which there's observers. It's a fantastic underutilized data set, I think. In the middle of the screen here, we have the search bar. It's a faceted search, so you can type in state of environment report or water quality, and then you can select themes and countries, so you can drill down and make sure you're getting the right data set. We're trying to make it intuitive. When you find the information you want, this little bar of social media buttons will be next to it, and you can share that. If you find a cool report that you want other people to see on Facebook or LinkedIn or Twitter, if you tweet, I don't tweet yet, or email, which is maybe more practical for this kind of stuff. Okay, next slide. This is the part you don't need to remember, but it could be helpful for a little bit of context. The way the database is built is it's not a relational database. You can't do queries inside of it. You can't ask for the number of trees per hectare. You can ask the data set that has that. Think of it kind of like a file cabinet. So this group is a drawer in the file cabinet. Inside that file cabinet, there's a folder called the data set. The data set has a bunch of metadata talking about what it is we're looking at. It might be water quality data for Niue. And then I'll talk about the years it's valid for, who created it, etc. Then inside that, there are resources, which might be 10 years of Excel files for water quality in Niue. And each one of those will have metadata attached to them as well. 1999, 2000, 2001. This one Paul Anderson did, this one Greg did, this one Affair did. That way, information that's different for each resource is captured on the resource itself. So the take-home message is a data set is the folder. There can be one or more resources inside of it, each with their own metadata, which is basically a little bit of information about the data itself, usually a date, an author, a title, and some keywords so you can find it. Those are the basic building blocks of the portal. Think of it like a filing cabinet. Inside the filing cabinet, there's folders. Inside the folders, there's the reports you need. Okay, this slide primarily wants to show you just two things. A stack of papers is a data set. There's multiple things. What is that, a paperclip? Haven't used one of those for a while. Paperclip is the data itself. So also, this little red PDF tells you the type of file inside of the folder. And if you don't see anything down here, no PDF, no Word doc, no GIS file, that means it's probably a private or shared data set that you need to log in to see. Okay, so for those of you who do have access or are within government, creating a data set is as easy as 1, 2, 3. You log in, you create a data set and add the relevant tags and set the license level. The data set is how you set private or shared. So every resource inside of it is either all private or all shared or all public. Then you add the data set and the metadata for that data set, and you push publish and it's done. It can take as little as 60 seconds, not a labor-intensive or complicated process. Maybe not relevant for this course, but I'm just giving you a little background in case you need it. Here are the nice visuals for the three types. Remember, 97% of the data is public. That's the gray box on the left. The orangey burnt orange color is shared. Anyone with a login to the data portal at the national level can see shared information. So you could share between forestry and agriculture and fisheries if you wanted to. If you only want fisheries to see it, just people in the fisheries group. If you're logged in as fisheries, you can see private data from fisheries, but not forestry and not ag. Not incredibly important to most of us, public is the way to go. What type of information might you find in the data portals? Like what file types? CSVs, which are kind of like Excel, flat files, HTML, Excel, JSON, Word documents, rich text, pictures like JPEGs, PNGs, GIFs, TIFFs, PDFs. We have a lot of PDFs, more than I'd like. I'd like more Excels, but suffice to say, the only thing that you won't see in the data portal are giant files. Because we're in the Pacific and we're transferring files through the internet, if it's larger than a gigabyte, it's too big. So your remotely sensed imagery of the Earth or giant photo files are probably not appropriate or going to be found here. But nice maps and Word docs and PDFs, they're all less than a megabyte typically, plenty of those there. So the one thing you won't see are really large files. Those are best stored on island on a computer that's accessible physically. Okay, slide down from there. So because we're talking about 14 national data portals, different countries have different approaches to allowing access to the data portals. Some countries, like our colleagues in Tuvalu, have asked SPREP to assign access to some of their consultants to directly upload data. I think this was from the waste project, a waste assessment, directly into the data portal so everyone can see it. That's a fine way to do it. To do that, they needed to request through the national focal point, which is listed on the About page on the regional data portal for access. They can assign it, or they can email me or Longy or inform@sprep.org and request it, and we'll contact the national manager to ensure that they're okay with that idea. We've had really good success with that. Most people would like more information available, and the less work they have to do, the better. So if we have a consultant who wants to share and upload and we trust them, it's not a bad idea, but again, not SPREP's choice, the choice of our national administrator. Okay, some examples of information, because we're talking about EIAs here. This is a baseline assessment of water quality for the Gold Ridge Mine in Solomons. Information that probably took time and effort to collect, and probably funding as well, and information that probably few people have access to. It's published on here. You can click on the link. I'm not going to do that because it's going to interrupt my PowerPoint presentation, but information like this is on the Solomon Island National Data Portal, as well as the Pacific Regional Environment Data Portal. Nice map there. I can't tell you, when I first came to SPREP 15 years ago, I was looking all over for shape files to make maps of watersheds and roads, and man, they were hard to find. There's a bunch of them on the data portal now. You're welcome to use them. SPREP was accessed and published a bunch. GIS information is really expensive to develop, so if we can make more and more use of that, all the better. Another example, metal contamination from road dust, fantastic information in Suva and Fiji. I'm not even sure if I think N must be the sample size. Yeah, so metals down the left-hand side, the range, what the acceptable limit is. Only a couple of overages there. Maybe not so good there with what is this? Is that copper? Why is there so much copper in the soil? Anyway, could be very relevant for roadworks and other things. You shouldn't have to go recreate this data or not know that it's there. This is now available on the regional environment data pool. Another example of the type of information that you might want and can find in the National Data Portal in Samoa is the terrestrial protected areas area and when it was established and the name and links to more information about it. This is probably available in more than one place, including the World Database on Protected Areas, but in an effort to make sure that national information is held at the national level, it's also here. Another example of information, this time in Excel format with graphs, is water quality of the Suva foreshore being used for estuary and marine recreation. And it looks like this particular settlement has everything over the threshold, which doesn't look super positive. But the important thing is the information is there. It's ready for you to consume and use. And what we want to end the presentation with is if you're generating information like this for an EIA project, you should not just submit to your national counterpart the report, but also the Excel file, any maps that you have in digital format so that they have a copy of it and they can share it with people coming in the future to do similar work. A boost and a link to the PNEA, which I think everyone here is familiar with. Both the National Environment Data Portals here called Inform, because I'm still trying to get that name out of my head, because it's just a project. Projects don't matter, the services matter. The tools will allow you to access and widely share information focused on EIAs. There are a number of people in each country that have the ability to help upload information to the national data portals, and that information can end up on the PNEA. The two portals are linked together, and really the back end of the data on the PNEA sits in a couple places, but it flows through the Pacific Environment Data Portal. Okay, in summary, there's a network of portals that exist. They're open, ready for use, nothing to wait for. Country-specific EIA data and/or reports can be and should be uploaded to the national data portals pending national desire and regulations. And we welcome your input to help us further improve the platforms. So if it's not working or you're not seeing something or the search is not delivering the results you want, I'd like to hear about it, because the whole point of these things are for them to be useful and used. And so if you're having any issues with it, we'd be keen to take that feedback and then make improvements. So now we have the option to take a break and take some questions and/or have a little virtual live tour of the portal and some of the features so you can see how easy it is to click around. Greg, what do you think?
Yeah, I think we've got a couple of questions that have come through during your presentation. But Joyce, who's posted a question, and she sent this to Joppe and myself earlier today as well. So it's in regards to access to water quality data. She specifically was looking for stuff to do with Solomon Islands hydro sedimentary data for a project she's doing in the Solomon Islands. And then you just so happened to present some information that showed water quality data for Solomon Islands. So you're saying, or any water quality data for the region, and you just so happened to present some data sets that showed that for Fiji as well. So yes, quick answer, Joyce, there are data sets for this, and we can point you to more information. As I put in the private chat to you, SPREP also worked with the University of Newcastle to recently draft up some liquid waste standards for Solomon Islands. And in order to do that, we had to gather a whole heap of baseline ambient water quality data so that we could set some relevant standards for water quality and contamination levels. Because before you can set a standard, you got to know what's in existence previously. Yep, the background, exactly, Paul. So yes, that data does exist, and we have fortuitously compiled all of that. A lot of it is where Paul has been talking about on the National Data Portal, but also within the project folder that we did with the University of Newcastle and the government of Solomon Islands. So yes, SPREP can help you with that one.
The other thing, oh, go ahead, Greg.
Go sorry. But yeah, one of the other things Paul did touch on a little bit, but just to really emphasize, as he said, collecting data is super expensive generally, and it's one of the main bugbears for people doing studies, especially EIAs. Oh, you want me to do this baseline study? It's going to cost me a whole heap of money to collect all this information. This portal, it works two ways. It's fantastic because there's already a whole heap of existing data there. So they can go back and they can see historical data collection. They can also see the standard of how data has been collected, so that when they collect their own data to fill any gaps, they make sure they're taking it in a comparable manner so that the data is then comparable. The other really important thing as EIA practitioners is that when we collect data on our projects, that we make sure that it is shared with the regulators and they are encouraged to put it up on these portals, because going forward, it makes everybody's job so much easier if this data is available, because you can analyze it, you can reuse it, you can make comparisons, you can set standards, you can identify trigger points, you can help you identify appropriate approval conditions. Really useful, powerful tool. Data is king, okay? There, I said it, Paul.
Excellent, excellent. I entirely agree. It's really important. And, you know, something that we struggle with in the Pacific is regular operating budgets to gather information. They don't exist. I'm not embarrassed by it. That's the situation, fine. But if you're doing a project and you can find older water quality data and you have a budget to get new data, we could then have a time series. So what we really want is for you to make use of the old information for what you can. And if you have a budget to gather new data, for goodness sake, let's make that part of the national time series, because there typically isn't a budget to gather good water quality data every year, every month. So in the stochastic or unpredictable way that we do, we need to capture it, store it for future use. Because we want to see water quality getting better. And if it's not, we need everyone to know about it, because we all depend on it for drinking and for a variety of purposes. So we all benefit if everybody, including all EIA practitioners, are helping build that wealth of knowledge. We have a tool. We don't have the solution. We have part of the solution that if you make use of it, it'll make it a bigger part of the solution. Thanks, Greg.
Excellent point, Paul.
Paul?
Yes.
Paul, we have a question from Margaret. She asks, in the case of Samoa, do you have any data on utilities and are they regularly updated and current? I take it this means public utilities, Margaret? Yes.
Great question. I am not sure. Samoa's national database is something like 460 data sets. So we need to spend a little bit of time typing utilities, electricity, water, whatever it is that we're after, into the search bar and scanning some of the data sets to check. There certainly is data on utilities. I'm not sure if it's been published on the National Data Portal. So
Yes.
less of a technical challenge, but maybe you know for if there is.
Yeah, from my experience, I would go directly to LTA for that data, or Samoa Water Authority to get to get that data and EPC. But yes, it's good to know that we don't have that here yet, but hopefully we'll have it soon, Paul. Will make it so much more easy to gather that information from one.
So you can see that Paul is quickly scrolling away
there's some
and
stuff.
doing a search already. So he's giving you a really rapid tour of how this works.
Yeah, so here's the Samoa data portal. I typed in electric, just one word to see what pop up. There's an SOE, there's something from EPC on GIS, probably not what you're looking for, maybe. Inventory of e-waste, not what you're looking for unless waste is a utility. Something on the solar farm, probably a GIS file, because you know GIS shape files come in 6 parts. The only way to upload them into one piece is to zip them together and upload a zip file. We could read more about that one. Here's a good example of inventory of e-waste, not utilities. So I'm sorry, that's not the right one, but it does have a PDF and an Excel and a CVS file. For some
And we've got
reason,
Vani from your
Vani,
team
yeah.
who's actually shared the link. So she's gone in and done the same thing, Paul.
oh good. Oh, good.
So Vani's actually shared the link within the chat. So Samoa 2011 to 2013 and utility data. And the link is to the Pacific Data SPREP.org dataset Samoa 2011 to 13 utility dataset 0. So it is there. I guess it's just playing with the search terms.
The cool
That's
thing is
2013 now.
That's
We've got so
2011
much-
to 2013.
There's so much data now. So, okay, sorry. Longy, this is you're gonna do the tour, but I just want to show one thing on the tour. So this is the regional data portal, pacific-data.sprep.org. And down toward the bottom, there's a counter we've got that talks about how many data sets are there. There's 13,952. I thought there was 11,000 because there was a couple of weeks ago. So I don't know which data sets are in here exactly, but the search bar will help you, and we will help you if we can. I think that we have a really good search engine. I think it'll lead you to the data sets you need. It's a great problem to have when you have 13,000 data sets. You're like, I don't know, let's check and see if it's here. Maybe it is, that'd be great. If it's not and you find it, let us know so we can upload it so we can find it next time. Okay, any other questions before a more consistent informal tour?
No other questions so far, Paul, from those. Just a comment from Ulika Lessi. This is very useful for the Pacific where environmental data is generally lacking and expensive to gather. Thank you.
Our pleasure. Our entire point of existence, at least my team, is to help you with your work. We would like Pacific Island countries to have more capacity and more resources. And so we're only doing this. There's no profit motive. Like SPREP exists to serve the countries, and this is one of the ways we're trying to do that. And it's kind of working because our countries have told us exactly what to do. So there's a two-way flow. Longy, I've stopped sharing. Would you like to do a little tour of the front page of the Pacific Environment Data Portal on your computer, or do you want me to share mine? You got yours? Okay, I'll be quiet now. Thank you. Over to you, Longy.
Thank you, Paul. Talafalava, everyone. And so I'm not going to give you like a very quick live tour of the portal that Paul was talking about in his presentation. So the web address is up there. So once you once you're able to access the portal through that web address, it will direct you straight into this home page that you are looking at on the screen. And as Paul already mentioned, that the login button is right here. So if you want to access your country national portal, you will have to contact the site manager or the people that are basically they're based at the Department of Environment of your country, or you can let us know and we will put forth a request for you to have your username and password so you can access the portal. But even if you don't have access, as already mentioned, you can search. There's already a search field here where you can search the data that you're after. Sometimes the data that are on the portal are shared as under a private license, which means you might see the data is there, but you're not able to access it. That's when you contact the people with their emails listed on the datasets. Please can I have access to this portal? Because sometimes those private datasets are raw data that are belong to the countries, and they prefer to just put it on their portal as a private dataset. So for example, an example of an EIA data that Paul was sharing on his presentation was that Fiji's assessment of metal contamination in Suva. So the data that are at the national portal, sometimes they are harvested to the Pacific Environment portal, which means whatever is uploaded at the national level, it will go to this regional portal. So if I look for that metal, I just type in some keywords. For example, it's just like, for example, you are at the university and you're looking at the university library and you're looking for a specific data about climate change. You just type in keywords, and then it will pull up all the resources that are available. Contamination, for example, this is an example. And I typed that word metal contamination, and it pulls up all of these data sets that are currently available on the portal. For example, it was in Paul's presentation, the assessment of metal contamination in Suva, and many other that are related to Pacific Island countries, for example, Kiribati in New Zealand, some related to Tuvalu. So these are publicly available data related to these keywords that I typed in there. As I mentioned, sometimes you will see just the heading, but there is no data. So that means it's a private data set. So you will have to contact the people with their emails that are listed on that data set. This can have access to this particular data set. And we have received those requests from university students, from people outside of SPREP wanting to access some data that are private. And we always ask the countries to give us permission to release that data. And then the dashboard, as you scroll on the homepage, pretty much it's just a way of displaying the data, related data in one area. So for example, we have a GIS spatial data dashboard. So when you click on it, it will pull up all of this related information to different websites. For example, you can go to Backgeo, you can click on the Pacific map, and it's all related to spatial data that are either on the portal, or they are other websites that allows you to access spatial data in the Pacific. So that's the main reason why we have dashboards. It's just pretty much to put together relevant data together in one dashboard so that it's easy for you to just click on it, and then you just go to various data sets that are related. For example, we have marine waste. So when you click on it, you go to all these different reports. We still have to continue to make more dashboards so that it's easy for the people to access the data. And then at the center of the homepage, you will have, this is like a feature, for example, as already mentioned, like a regional state of environment report. We featured it here so that it's easy for people to access it. But if you have like for example, in a country portal that you really want a new EIA for your country that to be featured on your national portal, that can be done too. So it just leads me straight to the website of the state of environment report in the country. At the same time, I can also just download it as a PDF. So it leads me to the PDF. So it's not like the SOE of like the regional report is going to be there forever. Sometimes we may have a new report coming, and then we also featured it as well in this homepage. And then we have popular data sets. So pretty much data sets that are frequently accessed by people. And then on the right side, we have some statistics of how many data sets are there, how many dashboards that we have, the countries, 17 countries. And scroll further down to the bottom, we have news items, and sometimes we also feature events here, events like upcoming events for the Pacific. As you can see here, one of our news items is about the environmental impact assessment training that was done for Tokelau. So it's featured there. At the same time, it's also featured at the SPREP website. And then as you scroll further down, you will come across the network of national portals, as already mentioned by Paul. It's pretty much a map. So you click on your country to access your country portal. For example, if I click on WS, it leads me straight to the Samoa environment data portal. I already logged in, that's why there's a lockout there. So it's pretty much similar homepage features. You have the search button, you have the dashboards, the current existing SOE for Samoa, maybe the new SOE will be featured here later, the popular data sets, and of course the featured content, for example, some news items that are related to Samoa. So it's pretty much the same as the Pacific Environment Portal. So if you want to have access, as already mentioned by Pauline's presentation, if you want to have access, and we really want you to have your EIA data or EIA related information or any environment related information to upload on your national portal, you can just let us know, and then we request the country to give you access as a content creator so that you can upload the data, or we can upload it for you. So that's pretty much an overview about it, but if you are very interested to know more how to upload the data set, it's, we can help you with that, but I can also go ahead and just give you a demo if you want. Like, for example, once you get your username and your password, then you have access. You are now inside the portal. So, and automatically the features up will be changed, like the menu, like you will have access to this icons that allows you to add a new data set, allows you to add a news item or data story, depending on the kind of user permission that we give you.
Long is there a online location where people who have access can learn more about best practices and how to upload?
Yes, we do. So at the homepage of the portal, you either go on the docs here. The docs is pretty much our online manual, but we do also have a online course. So this online course was developed by SPREP specifically for the inform course. It's just like Unit 1 is just basically teaching you how to upload a data on the portal. So if you go on the SPREP website, I can also send a link later to the registration. We have our Inform e-learning registration link here. So once you register, we will then liaise with the country to give you access. Oh, no, sorry. We will then sign you up to the course. It's a free course. It's flexible, which means you can take at your free time. And then you'll be able to learn more through 5 modules on how to upload data on the portal. And then you will get a certificate at the end. So I think I will share the link to the registration for this Inform e-learning course so that you can access it and learn more how the portal works.
Thanks, Langi. We've got Greg there with a hand raised. Go ahead, sir.
Thanks, Zafira. Thanks, Langi. Awesome, awesome presentation. The site's, I really loved seeing the evolution of the site over the last few years. It's looking fantastic, especially with those dashboards now and the interactive SOE. I had a question, but there's also a question in the chat. So I'll ask the question in the chat first from Nome from Vanuatu. Hey Norma, how you going? So I'm just going to read a question for you. So she's asking, can anyone request access, or does it have to be from an authority? So she's basically, the question is, who can use the portal and get access to accessing certain files, and does it have to come from the authority? So, well, you know the answer, I know the answer, but if we just repeat that for the rest of the listeners.
Yes, so to access the country portal, for example, Samoa, we don't just add, because it's a country portal, so it needs approval from the country, and the country means the people that are at, for example, the CEO of MNRE. So it's just an email away, like, please can I please allow this person to access the portal. Then, because we have different users, so we can give you a content creator, which means you can upload data on the portal, but there are certain other restrictions based on your, but definitely the approval comes from the country.
Yeah. So anyone can access the regional portal and have a look at it for whatever's publicly available. Likewise, anyone can request access to country portals, but the authority has to come from the focal point, who's in charge, the authority in charge, which is it's usually the head of MNRE or the CEO of whichever department that's been given it. So yeah, we encourage everyone to try to access the regional portal. And if you see something that you think that you need access to or you would like to use, you can request that access from the countries directly or from the data set owner, which will be told to you when you do your search in the search results. You'll quickly find that out and you pull up a data set.
Okay.
Oh, you got your hand up.
sorry,
But there was
yeah.
one more question I had before I let you go, unless you want to correct what I just said, Paul.
I just want to clarify the term access.
Yeah.
Everybody in the world, including
Yep.
everyone on this call, can access any portal they want and download any information that's public. So
Yes.
Samoa, Papua New Guinea, FSM, no problem accessing the portal. If you want to contribute to it, you need to log in. To do that, our national counterpart has to say, yes, Paul is okay. And this is just to protect them from having somebody who might have malicious intent uploading things that shouldn't be there. So as long as our country counterpart says, yes, consultant XYZ should contribute, you can have access to upload information. You already have access to download information. Just to clarify the term access. Back to you, Greg. Sorry.
Yep. No. Good point. Good clarification there, Paul. Yes. So anyone, and that is the main selling point that we want to emphasize here with these portals is that the whole intent of them, as Paul said very early on, is if you're at a COP, if you're in an international meeting, or even if you're out on a boat, as long as you've got internet connectivity on your device, you can log in and go to these sites and just find the data that's publicly available. You can even see that there are privately stored files. You just won't be able to access them unless you have been given that prior permission. So yes, you can access it anywhere. So you can reach this information wherever you want. Everyone has that ability, and that's the point of it, is to be made as widely available as possible to help with filling those data gaps. I had a very specific question because Langi did point out a couple of times about the importance of storing EIAs, and the countries could even feature EIAs on there, which would be a fantastic way of making them publicly available during the review phases. That'd be great. My question is, and I know that Solomon Islands and Tuvalu looked at doing this for a little while, how many countries have actually done that, and how many EIAs do we have on there at the moment? And this will probably be, sadly, not that great, but anyway, I still want to know.
Okay, because I always have access to the portal. Thank you very much, Greg, for the question. Good question, though. But so there's quite a lot, because we are also pulling information from the library, SPREP library, at the same time from SPC, but we don't really have like a count of how many EIAs, because if you type EIAs on the Pacific Environment Portal, all these different reports or related information pops up. Or any data set that was uploaded on the portal that people decide to add EIA as a keyword. So we don't have a specific number. Like I cannot tell you a specific number of how many EIA data sets that are there, but there are EIA data sets.
Yep.
And yeah.
Okay.
But
Thanks. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Langi. Sorry.
No, it's okay. Go ahead.
Have you finished with that answer? Sorry, I'm just going on to some of the questions that's been raised in our chat box. I think this one is connected to your presentation from Urukalesi. Is it possible to get a list of the data sets available for the different PIC? And I saw that you presented on that. Is it possible to get a list of the data sets available for the different PIC?
Okay. So at the back end, I think we can get a list, but it will be more than thousands of data sets if you have any specific data. But yeah, I think we can be able to give you a list of data sets, right, Paul?
I'm looking kind of puzzled because, you know, like Google could probably print a list of things you can search, but that would be helpful because there's too many things. So there's currently 13,952 data sets, and that will change tomorrow.
Yeah, at the rate that we Alangi and the
But-
countries are uploading, you could have 20,000 by the middle of the year. So
Maybe not 20. I
maybe
hope we
not
get
that,
there, I'm not
but
sure.
you know, it's grown a lot since last year as well.
The point is though, at any time, you can browse all of those data sets online, or you can go into the country you're working on
Yeah,
UA.
I
and
think
browse
that's what
that
he meant.
450,
Hmm.
and you can search for specific things. If you're looking for water quality
Yeah.
or fisheries, you type that term and you can browse those
Yeah.
and select the ones you like.
So you can do that on this, on
Yes.
this.
You can do that. I don't want to print off a copy for you, but you can definitely look at it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So there's
Guys,
a couple of
oh,
other
no, you go
questions.
again. Go ahead.
Yes, I was
Greg.
going to say there's a couple of other questions here. I'm just trying to see where we've got to. So we had this
Margaret.
question here from Margaret, and she's asked, is there a way that we can simplify this process to access the country portal through the PNEP, which I'm wondering if she means PNEA, and then not as a content creator, but just to view and access the baseline studies? And well, short answer is the PNEA, if that's what you're talking about, is and the Pacific Regional Portal, they are linked, and the PNEA does harvest EIA related data and reports from that. So that's kind of why I was asking Langi that question, because we always have to double check that we're harvesting as much of it as we can. So it does it automatically and routinely. We have a few issues because we had to retrain the algorithm. It was a very simple oversight when we set it up with the programmers. We asked for strategic environmental assessment, so they use the acronyms, and the acronym for strategic environmental assessment is SEA, and SEA, as you know, spells out sea. And so we were pulling in all sorts of stuff, including sea cucumber harvest records for aquaculture and all parts of the, so it's important that you use the right search terms when you're doing that. But if you really want to drill down and get the country specific data, you go to the country portal, because the PNEA, it's not powerful enough to go through the regional and into the national portal. They're just not linked up like that. So it's probably quicker, now that you know this portal exists, to go straight to the source, which is the national portal, and pull that information out. We'll do our best to put it on the PNEA, but we try not to overload that site with too much other data, because we are storing video files and other things on that portal. The two portals are linked. You can jump from one to the other easily enough, and there's links for that. But yeah, rather than trying to duplicate the portal and harvesting data multiple times across platforms, just go straight to the national portal.
Great. Thanks, Greg. I see here that Anna had a question, but that's already been answered about ADB project documents, EIAs.
We are trying to do that because, yeah, through the PLP, and we would love to have as many EIA. So if you know where there's any that exist, please let us know. Ivan, Langi, myself, and we can put them on there. So if you come across a document that you think is relevant, it's got useful data in it, or an EIA report, and you want it up there, or you think that it should be made public, send it through to us, and we can check. We'll do the validation and the verification to make sure that it gets uploaded, and the status that it can be shared with. So we'll check with the countries. That's what we do.
Great. Paul, I just wanted to follow up with a question from Margaret about utilities. The utilities information, is there any plans to get that information and update it onto this portal?
Well, so a lot of the information updates are ad hoc. When there's an opportunity, information goes on. Currently, Samoa is conducting its 5th State of Environment process, in which utilities information should be gathered and analyzed and used. And part of the consultancy for the SOE process is to publish the data on the MNRE database, which is the samoa-data.sprep.org. So it's not a plan, but it's part of an existing process. So probably yes. not positive, but I would expect updates to the Samoa National Data Portal sometime later in 2022.
Great, thank you,
This is the
Paul.
best I can do.
Was that a good answer for you, Margaret?
I've got one more thing to
Yes,
show
go
off.
ahead,
I'll
Paul.
wait for a question. Okay, so I'm going to share my screen again. I'm showing the front end of the Pacific Environment Data Portal. And I'm scrolling down to the middle where there's a black bar with a featured report or data set sitting. And this one is Regional State of Environment Report and Conservation. And there's many of these on the national data portals for the country. And some of them now have interactive websites. So I'm just going to click on this Explore instead of Download, because Explorer takes it to an interactive website. And there you'll find basic statistics and information and links to the actual full report for environmental governance, land resources, coastal and marine resources, conservation and protection, biodiversity, atmosphere and climate, the built environment, and that's areas like waste and pollution, as well as data and knowledge resources. So let's just jump down to built environment. In here, there's information across the region on municipal waste generation per person. And then that same information will be in the national state environment report, but focused on subdivisions within the country. I'm showing this to you because unfortunately, I feel like this information is underutilized. Great effort has been taken to gather together regional information, publish it in a multi-hundred page document, publish it as an interactive website, and break it down into, let me just scroll down a second here, individual indicators for each of those interesting areas of query that you can download and use. So you don't have to look at the full 200-page document. You can look at the 5-page document on hazardous waste. All of this is online, available for use. We'd like you to use it. It's also available at the country level, also available for you to use maybe as background information for EIAs, maybe for something else. But I'm just spending like a minute to plug it, like it's here, and it's not intended to be secret. It's intended for you and everyone else to make use of. And you can find it at soec.sprep.org or from the Regional Environment Data Portal. And let's go to one that has let's go to FSM. Remember, FSM is an acronym. Type in fsm-data.sprep.org, or you go down to the map and click on FSM. There's the National Data Portal of FSM. In the middle is the SOE, and there's also an Explore the Report Online. There's an interactive website for a variety of indicators from the SOE here for you to read, as well as a full document. Okay, that's it for that plug on additional information you might find useful.
Great, thanks, Paul. That's really useful. It's especially for EIA practitioners to know that that information is available on the portal. We have a question here from Marista. Can these portals be used as mediums for disclosure of safeguard documents of national projects or donor-funded projects for public viewing?
I thought earlier in the process, and we haven't tried this, that like, okay, so I'm in the US and I only know a little bit about our EIA procedures, but there's a public disclosure period here for all EIAs. You have to tell the public about the project you're doing and the problems that might occur. The way that's typically done is putting the report and the findings online. These portals absolutely could be used for that if the national government wants to.
Yeah.
So if they wanted to disclose things online with a publicly viewable document, yes, that can be done. I don't know if they want to. I'm not going to push anyone to do it, but the tool is there to be used. It costs nothing. The time to upload a public disclosure document is minutes. And you can take it down when you're done or leave it there forever. So technically, yes. Greg, do you want to talk about the process if there is one?
Yeah, the process will depend on the country themselves, as Paul said, because with, for example, Fiji, they have their data portal already and everything is pretty much private. And with regards to their EIA documents, they have their own process for making them publicly available, and members of the public have to come in and have the requested report printed out. And I'm not going to get into all of that. So each country has a slightly their own process for how they do it. But as Paul said, yes, in theory, and this is one of the reasons that it's been designed the way it is. And Lungi talked about that featured content bar, where currently we have the SOE presented on the national and the regional portals. We could do the same thing. We could swap that out and put in an EIA. So that could be done as well, provided the country agrees to do it.
And,
Go ahead, Paul.
and the additional bit of information there is every single data set that's uploaded gets its own unique URL. And so I can send that URL to anyone I want. If I say, look at this EIA or look at this cool map I made. So you don't have to browse through the search and down to the map. You just click the URL, it takes you right to it. So you could use the featured data set to share a public disclosure document. You could use a URL to email out to the people you want to see it. The sharing ability, the ability to publish to LinkedIn, to Twitter, to Facebook, it's all there and ready to go. It's just making use of it if we want to. So technically, yes, no problem. Internal processes, it depends on individual country need and desire.
Yeah.
Thanks.
So if you're working on a donor project, that would be probably something to open up in the discussions with the countries and with the project manager early on. Here's this platform. We can use this. We can use it to disseminate out our documentation to make it out to the public. And as Paul said, you can do it a variety of ways. You can either have a frigid content, or as Vani shared with us earlier, the link directly to that data set within the portal, so that you could then send it out to a mailing list. So if you just had a mailing list of key stakeholders because it was a document that maybe a little bit more sensitive and wanted their inputs on that document and review of it before it went to the wider public, you could do it that way. Yeah, there's a number of ways it can be done, but again, it's something that needs to be done with consultation and approval with the authorities. All EIAs should be made public. It says so in the legislation. I've read the legislation for most of the countries. It's just the interpretation by the authorities.
That's right.
And what they mean by that.
Yeah, that's correct. Because I know here for Puma, it's only when you go to the office and request to see that EIA and how are you connected to the project, then they will release it. But they haven't put up any EIA reports online for public viewing.
And I do know from experience in Australia and having done major EIAs here, they have done that. Organizations have put them up on websites, and including the EPA and as well as the proponent themselves. Some proponents and some organizations, they are reluctant to do that because when you make it on the internet, and as Paul said, you can access these platforms anywhere. And this is where we might get pushback from countries, is that they are reluctant because this opens up the platform, opens up for questions from people who are not related to the project, who are not direct stakeholders, who just concerned parties, so to speak, or potential people who would just like to cause trouble. So people who want to basically protest against the development without any real understanding or direct impact from that development. So there's arguments both ways for that, but you can quickly determine whether or not somebody's complaint is legitimate or not. So I still think this is a great mechanism to make it publicly available, and I would encourage you to try and use it, but just understand there may be pushback from some authorities, and that's part of their rationale for that.
The cool thing is you could try, try with one. If you get valid comments, great. If not,
please try. Yeah.
If it doesn't work out, just don't do it again. The cost of experimenting is really low. Like the cost of hosting the data set, we're paying for it. And even if we weren't, it's cents. It's not a significant cost. If you want public input, like the internet is the thing that people use now. I expect everything that I need to be on it. So it'll be reasonable for people in Solomons and Samoa to also find things that they need to look at on the internet. So technically it's possible. I recommend trying it. If it doesn't work the first time, okay, don't do it again. Like, all you did was learn something, which is helpful.
Yeah.
But not my decision to make. I'm just, pushing the open data thing because it makes so much sense.
Yes. So yeah, this is something that Paul and I have really worked hard to try and to get to happen, and we would love it to happen. We've had a few, as Langi said, there are quite a few EIA documents on there. They haven't necessarily been put up in that manner. I don't remember any of them having that done, but I do know that the national governments do store their EIAs on there, but we would love for them to use this functionality. So if you want to do it on your project, please try.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you, guys. We have a comment here from Margaret. She says donor partners do disclose EIA on their websites. It's part of information disclosure. And I just wanted to add also to Margaret's question about baseline data. I think that's one of the things, important data that most EIA practitioners look for as well. And it's good to know that there is some available here on this portal. And I think that may be the last of our questions. And we are exactly at 1 hour and 30 minutes now.
So make Paul very happy.
So we are very on time for this session. I'll just pass it back to Paul and Langi and maybe Greg as well for any final comments.
Excellent. Langi, maybe you want to start from your side, and I'll take over and pass to Greg.
Thank you, Paul. So it's just a reminder for our registration for the Inform e-learning course if you're keen to learn more about the portals, because it will really help you to really get inside the portal and upload data, and to also populate your national country portals. But that's all from my end. Thank you so much for your attention.
Thanks,
Thank you, Langi. Really good points. I'll just end by saying that SPREP and this team here exists to serve the countries, and I know all of you are working in the Pacific Island countries and are working for them. So if there's anything we can do to help, if you have something you want to try and we can assist with that, as long as our national focal points agree, we are more than happy to assist you, including sharing our e-learning platform, showing you how to navigate the data portals if you need help with it. All of our work is better if we're sharing and open. This is a pretty open network, so thank you for taking the time to listen. I hope I was clear. If you have any questions to follow up on, I'm around an email. Thanks so much.
Thanks, Paul.
Thank you, Paul. Thank you, Langi. For those of you who don't know, Langi is basically runs that portal. Paul is is the project manager, but Langi does all the behind the scenes and making sure it's running smoothly. And she's currently recovering from COVID too, so fantastic that she was able to join us and run us through that. Really quick summaries of what we went through today. So we highlighted the Pacific Environmental Portal and the national portals, where each of the countries across the Pacific, the island countries, as well as 3 of the territories, have their own portals. The regional portal talks down and up to those portals. So there is some data that is shared between them. That's the publicly available data. So you can delve just into that. But if you're really wanting specific data for your country, go to the national portal. As we said, and to reiterate, the data is publicly available. 97% or more is publicly available. So you can just go in and use it. You don't have to worry about asking for access. You just go and use the search bar and find what you want. If you can't find what you want and there's something you think that should be there, you can send a request and see if we can help you find it. Likewise, if there's something that is marked as private, but you can see it exists, but you can't get access, you can send a request through to the data manager, and that's usually listed in that search string. It'll tell you who is in control of that data, and you can send the request directly to them, or you can again request us to help you in facilitating getting access. And all we can do is ask on your behalf, but we can maybe explain your case and why you need it. And the other point, if you've got data, please share it with us. We'd love to put it up there and share it with everybody else to make everybody else's jobs much easier in the future. We can start, as Paul said, start building this time series of data, because there are so many gaps out there and so many ad hoc projects. And really, if you're setting up an EIA, I really recommend you going and having a look at this, seeing what data sets already exist, and seeing how you can use them to utilize them to benefit your project, but also how your project can fill data gaps, because it's a great sort of intellectual offset when you're doing a project. You say, well, we're going to do this, collect this data, we're going to give it to you as well, so it'll benefit your monitoring program going forward. So it's a good two-way street, and it helps with your approvals conditions, because you can see what's already happened in the past in your data. You can see how it's feeding. It can set much better trigger conditions, so that hopefully they're not setting things that are ridiculous for your project, and you can base them on facts rather than people's conjecture. So very powerful tool, but only if we use it properly. And yes, thank you for those comments, especially Margaret, about the EIAs being shared by donors. We would love for the ADB and other projects data and EIAs to be highlighted on our sites. Happy to talk about that more offline. So please get in contact with us. Our contact details are usually in these flyers. And for those of you not already registered on the PNEA, please register on the PNEA, and you will get then access to the recording of this presentation and all the previous modules. So really good resource as well for those of you wanting to brush up on your ESS skills. And once again, thank you all for your time. And wherever you're logging in from, I hope you stay safe and keep your family safe. And we'll see you next time. I'll hand you over to Farah.
Thanks, Greg. Thank you, everyone. A big thank you to our trainers today. Thank you so much, Paul and Langi, and also always Greg. It's a big help in all our trainings. Thank you so much on behalf of our PLP-ESS partners. Thank you for your time, and we pray for God's blessings over you so you can continue to be a blessing to many more. And so thank you so much for that. And also we would like to take this opportunity to thank our partners and our sponsors, World Bank, ADB, Lesbian SPREP, for this great training opportunity for all of us. We learn so much from these trainings, and we are very thankful for that. And so thank you so much. Also to all our participants today, thank you for joining us. I know this week is a busy week with Mother's Day long weekend coming up, but we still had some good numbers. And so thank you for joining us today. I know you're going to use this training session to your benefit, especially knowing now you've seen Paul's face online, and Langi, and also Greg. You're going to utilize their service, because as Paul says, yes, they are serving and providing a service for us. And so we are thankful for that, that we have these guys providing this service that is needed. And so with that, just some reminders again for our participants, as Greg's already mentioned, but with the PNEA portal, please fill in your online survey evaluation forms. And also, I've just been reminded, if you have not received your certificates from the second round, please let us know, but we have already sent out all certificates. So, and also our next module, module 23, that's going to be another exciting training session that's on grievance redress mechanism, a case study from the Pacific, and that will be led by Mr. Thomas Callender from the World Bank. So don't miss out. That's next Wednesday, 11th of May, 2 p.m. Samoa time. don't miss out. And with that, Greg, can you just a brief closing remark before we log off? Thank you so much.
Oh, okay. Thank you. Thank you, Farah. Okay, so yeah, just a closing remark. Yeah, I don't really don't want to know what else to say other than that. Yes, as Paul has said, that data is really important and it's a powerful tool. It's not the solution, but it goes a long way. And if we use it correctly, we're contributing to making getting closer to that solution in addressing our environmental monitoring and management. So we're going to make good decisions based on good information. So just remember that, and I hope you guys all found this very useful. I'm always learning every time I come to these sessions, even though I help with this portal on a regular basis, and Paul and I had long discussions about it on how it can and better serve the region. Even that presentation, I still learned stuff about it, how we use it. And so thank you everyone for your participation and your excellent questions. Really triggers some good stimulating discussion. So thank you all again, and I look forward to seeing you next week. Thanks again, Paul. Fantastic presentation.
Thanks,
Yeah,
Paul.
thanks.
Thanks,
Thanks
Lani.
for having me.
Thanks,
Tough
Greg.
times
Thanks,
on my life.
Ivan.